Finally tonight, back to today's sentencing of 3 female punk rock band members in Russia and what it says about that country today. Margaret Warner has that.
The White House said today it was disappointed by the verdict and had, quote, concerns about the way these young women were treated by the Russian judicial system. To explore the trial's broader implications, we turn to Stephen Sestanovich, professor of international diplomacy at Columbia University. He served in the State Department during the Reagan and Clinton administrations. And Stephen Sestanovich, thank you for being with us. Fair to say this trial was about a lot more than what 3 young women did in an Orthodox cathedral in Moscow?
Absolutely. The political context is all here. This prank, protest, demonstration, performance took place at the height of the protests against Putin in February, when there was a sense of possibility, even inevitability, to the demonstrations and the opposition. Since then, a lot has happened. Putin has sent a message to the opposition through a number of measures that he's introduced, fines and raids on offices and the like, that it's going to be harder for them to operate. Meanwhile, the leaders of the protests have found a lot of their momentum dissipating. They haven't got a program. They haven't got any real unity. And so 6 months later, you have this trial. The authorities obviously calculate that they can use this to portray the opposition as marginal figures, weirdos. The opposition sees it differently. They think this is an opportunity to show that the regime is just purely authoritarian and arbitrary. We don't know how it's going to play out yet, but there's some interesting indicators. There was a poll released today that says Putin's popularity has dropped 12% in the course of the summer, his lowest rating ever.
Now, it also exposed, it seems, a rift in Russian society over the role of the Russian Orthodox Church. Now, what was that about?
Well, you know, political competition and culture wars often intersect in a lot of countries, including ours. And the Russian Orthodox Church has been a powerful symbol of national identity for a lot of people. It has gained adherents. More people go to church, including young people, in the 20 years since the Soviet Union collapsed. But it is also a very rigid and traditional force, and one that has aligned itself with the Putin regime in a way that has made it the target of a lot of the protesters. They've come to see the church as their opponent, and that's why you had this performance in the cathedral in February. For the protesters who were on the streets, today, what Putin is doing is showing that Russia is not an ordinary European country, that there's not the kind of freedom that they've been promised, that the regime can crush opposition at will. And you see that change in sentiment reflected in the polls. A couple of months ago, almost half of Russians thought that 2 years, which is the sentence that they got today, would be a fair punishment. That has dropped dramatically over the course of the summer. People don't like the idea that attractive young women who are mothers of young children and performing music in public, protesting Putin, should be sent to prison.
So very briefly, where does this standoff between Putin and the opposition go from here?
Well, they are both trying to calculate what their advantages are going to be here. For Putin, he has to play to his base. His base is traditional conservative Russia now, people who haven't benefited much from Putinism, and he wants to show that he's with them. For the opposition, this is perhaps an example of Putin going too far, as he often does. They want to try to capitalize on that.
So more to come. Steve Sestanovich, thank you so much.
Pleasure.